Okay, these are two different care sheets for ficus. And by the way, they keep changing its name from Salifolia to Erifolia and back again. That's just what they do. The taxonomy people just love to change the name. And since they're doing more and more genetic things, and figuring out relationships, yeah, yours is the same one. They'll keep changing the names of plants because they're trying to make them more genetically. Okay. Making them more based on their genes rather than anything else.
Good following. If you're trunk shopping a deciduous tree, do you do it when the buds swell or before?
If you're going to a deciduous tree, just as the buds begin to move.
So as they begin to like swell up a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's when you do it. Because you don't want it to put any energy into making new leaves. Once they just start to move, you cut all that top off of it. The auxins can no longer be released that are inhibiting the buds down below. So they will come out because it's a response thing.
And the other thing I've heard that kind of gouge cut that you're talking about makes a better broom. Is that true? Is that
yeah.
More like an even crown?
No, that makes a good broom.
Okay.
You just have to be very, very careful. We did an experiment, decades ago, where we took a bunch of small apple trees to do it. And if you've got to make that cut absolutely even. Because if you leave more material on the one side than the other, you're not going to get a nice broom. It's lopsided. You got to divide that up absolutely evenly. I actually prefer for the broom. That's the one thing I do a chop.
Do you make it as deep when you're doing a broom? You also make it like about 1 inch deep, you said?
For a broom, we do a flat cut.
Okay.
If I'm doing a broom, I'm going to do a flat cut. The ones I'm talking about is we're getting a new leader. The chops we're making.
Oh, I see.
We don't really want a broom for these things. You want to develop branches going up with a new leader. Okay, those care sheets you can keep. Those are just how to take care of your ficus and such. So you'll have it. Okay, so our chops today. To do our chops, you're going to make a nice, neat cut. For most of you, that's going to mean whatever cut you want to decide to experiment with. It's going to mean borrowing my big concave cutters, because most of you won't have that size concave cutter to make your chop. You're going to want to make some decisions. I just picked one at random here. This one has a little nub over here from some branch it had before. That's going to be a flaw. So if this was my tree, first I check to see how my Nabari is here, because these can usually have pretty good Nabari. Because everybody says, well, look at those big trinkets you started with. Those are all old. I think the newest one there is like 8 years old. But if you go down in here and go down in until you get a spread, you'll see trunks like this here, but at the bottom it's like this. So you're going to want to pull that all away. So I would probably make my cut down in here. Now, if this was a little bit later in the season and this all had new foliage. Now these were shipped up here just before Christmas from Weigert's in Florida. So hence they still have foliage and such on it. That'd be a good place to do it. We could say I could make a cut right here and have this as my new leader, but that's kind of ugly, so I wouldn't do that. I would cut it down to this point. These are all going to be Shohin. These are going to be small trees. It's just an experiment. The more of a wide base I have, the better it's going to look. If you decide you want to use the slant cut, then you need to really look at the base down here and decide what's your best looking front. If you're going to use a straight across cut, you can decide later what comes out. Now, to warn you, it's a ficus. It has dormant buds all underneath this. So you might actually get things to sprout out here. I did on some of mine. You'll have to then decide, do you want to keep some of those to have side branches on a little tree? So don't just automatically scratch them off. You want to keep those. Cut it off. I'll give you Vaseline. Put the Vaseline on it. Now, you're welcome, most of you are growing some at home. You're welcome to take these home where it'll be much warmer for them to sprout. Because my greenhouse goes down to 50 at night, so it takes a while for them to sprout out in my greenhouse. The top part, you are welcome, as you choose, to take cuttings from the branches at the top. Now, if these were portulacarias, you could replant the whole top, but they're ficuses. So you actually might be able to try and root the whole top. It's up to you. Or you can just do the branches, and I've got stuff that we can put them in. Keep them nice and warm. Put a plastic bag over them to keep the moisture on. Put a few chopsticks or skewers to keep the plastic from touching that, and they should root pretty quickly. And we've got Hormidin 3, which will make them root very quickly because they only need Hormidin 1. They need a weaker strength. So that's your first set of things to do. Oh, if you wanted to, these are optional, okay? This with your pots and all that kind of stuff and the tree, these are $40. Our other project are going to be these crazy looking little pines. Now right now they're just sitting in here. All I did was take them because they came in bare root. All I did was take them and put them down in some Akio soil, and they're nice and healthy. They've been in here for a while, and these were contributed to us by Mark Comstock, as I said. And what you're going to do with these is you're going to develop a perfect little pine. Now it's up to you, depending on how much time you want to put into this. If you want to put in 40 or 50 years, you can do the black pine. But otherwise, just to practice doing black pine, did I give you the black pine sheet?
Yeah, you did.
Yes.
Okay. What did I do with this? I just shouldn't bring my hat on. Okay, somewhere here it is. Let's see if I can talk. And you got the black pine one with the. Show me the front of your black pine.
I'll show you. Let's see. This has bonsai close-up on black pine, the northeast.
Oh, yeah, okay. So, you got this one.
Yeah.
Okay. That's. Oh, what? Okay, this is going to be interesting. Right? Let's just do recents. That's the way to do it. There we go. Now, there's several things that we can do. I did one now. Look at that. We get everybody one of those. There's several things you can do with black pine. But one of the first things you can do with them is to make a cutting. And the sheet I just had Nancy passed out.
Thank you.
If you want to try some of this yourself from seed, this is what you can do. You grow the seedlings and then you cut them to create roots. Now notice at the top of your sheet, you can cut different ways. If you cut it flat at the bottom, you are going to develop a tree that's going to go straight up out of its pot. If you cut it at an angle, that is for a cascade type, because you want the roots to support whichever way it is. You want your nabar to be out flat. All of these have flat cuts. So they're all designed for trees that are going to come straight up out of their pot. Now, if you wanted to be brave and recut them at an angle, you can do it, but I would suggest the first time we don't have to worry about that kind of stuff.
How old do you let the seedlings get when you make that cut? Like a couple months or one season? Or?
Until a set of buds form at the top.
So before that?
Yeah, when you see the buds starting to form at the top of
Then
the
you can
seedling, then you do that cut. Good question. The other thing you can do, which you can't do with these, is as they grow, if you just decide to let yours grow up and not do what I'm going to tell you to do with them, if you decide just to let it continue to grow, to get, tall and spindly like my literati thing, you can do what's on the bottom. If you want to get into one of those really wiggly kinds of pines, this is how it's done. You use a gravel thing and you manipulate your pine without wire underground. You can go to China and you can see line after line after line of these in clay pots done like this. There'll be thousands of them. The Chinese really like the wiggly things like that. And they consider it an easier thing to do than wiring them all, because then they don't have to unwire them. So it's just something you can try. So I decided, I'll do that. But you got to remember that big thing is this fertile layer on the bottom, that you've got to have your fertilizer and stuff down at the bottom of those pots, because you want to feed it. It turns out that the way pines will end up working, if you put lots of fertilizer and let it go down through the top and just keep watering it down in, it'll actually start forming roots up higher. You don't want that to happen. So you've got to put your time release stuff down in the bottom of the pot. Okay, so that one.
For the fertile layers, do you use an organic soil? Or do you use
For the fertilizer, no, you use a bonsai world. They use akadama here. Hard akadama.
And even though they look like big rocks and stuff, that's just sand in the middle.
Well, but it's chunky, rounded stuff. It's very chunky.
How big, like a grain is?
Think of pea.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Like pea gravel.
Yeah, pea gravel. Yeah, exactly. Okay, patience. I spent all that time developing this thing. There it is. There it is. Now I know I did this too late last night. Okay. Because I didn't run these off. Because I thought the printer would run out of paper in the middle of last night, and then I went to sleep and I didn't run it off. Okay, I'm going to give you all this stuff, but I'm going to run it off for you. I was wrong, there would have been enough paper. And you'll have a copy of it so that you don't have to take notes. Okay, I'll just do, you've got what? There's 6 of you here, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's just do that for now. I'll run the other ones off later. All right. The sheet I'm running off for you, there's a club in California. I attended a lot of their sessions. All they grow is black pines. They know how to grow black pines better than anybody. And so I kind of modified what they had, but I've given you all this stuff. You read this and you'll be able to grow your black pines easily. Very, very easily. They really know what they're doing. Because the thing with black pines is You want to be able to get your black pines to have this size needles. This is what happens when you follow their instructions compared to that size needles. So that's what you're going to do with this. All right.
And black pines are very just specific. What those care instructions are don't apply to any other pine.
Oh, you can use them for mugos.
Oh,
You can use them for any 2-needle pine. Remember that your pines are based on how many needles are in a cluster. If you're following 2-needle pines and you do this, it'll work. There are some slight differences for certain ones, but if you do it this way, it'll work. White pines are a whole nother thing, and to tell you the truth, really hard to grow in the north. If you want to get into it, I can give you stuff for it, but really not a thing to grow up here.
We have black pines naturally here.
Naturally, no, we have pitch pines, which are a relative.
Okay.
Okay, the problem with black pines is winter protection for them, for us. If you're in zone 5 or 6, no problem. I'm in zone 4.
So they don't grow at all in the woods out here. Okay.
Now we have pitch pines, which are just as good.
Okay.
And this all this stuff applies to pitch pines too, so it works.
so does that mean like in garage type winter storage?
For pitch pines, yeah. Well, pitch pines,
The black pines.
it depends on your garage. But yeah, your garage don't freeze, so yes. That'll work.
But a cold frame outside would be too cold for.
Right. My black pines go in my greenhouse, but I don't put them away until like the beginning of December. End of November, beginning of December. And you bring them out pretty early, mid-April. Okay. Yeah, we're doing well. Can't let this thing go. Alright, so forget the first couple pages because you can read that over because it's very specific, how to fertilize, all that good stuff, but you're capable of reading. I want you to go all the way, where did I do this? Oh, I just did it end them on the last page. Oh, you don't have yours yet. Okay, on the last page, this is a picture of one of your pines in this, the way they're grown. Now look at the root mass on this. That is from a cutting, and that cutting is only a few months old. The secret to this kind of cutting is rooting hormone, pumice with some black lava in it, and a misting system. And if you don't have the misting system, don't even try this, okay? You gotta have the misting system on it. Now, does that mean you need a big complex one? No, but you have to be around to just take your spritzer and come by once an hour and give it a good spritz, all right? Otherwise, you really want a misting system for it. But it develops a root system unlike anything. If this had been a regular pine, in other words, from a seed, if this had been from a seed, then oh, I can't do that with this one.
You said the missing is like once an hour?
No, I can't do this on this kind of page. What?
You said the misting is once an hour, that's until the root system's established, or?
Until they become established, yeah.
Wow.
Hence, you want specialized equipment. As remember, that's already a grown tree that has no root system on it. So it's got to be completely different conditions than if it was a seedling. The difference being that if this was the seedling, it would have that one tap root, these little fibrous roots out, which we don't want. So to get a good black pine, you've got to do that extra step. You've got to cut off those roots and redevelop the side roots, and only the side roots. Because I can tell you, lots of pines I have that weren't developed this way, the roots are a mess because everybody just curled that thing around and let it redevelop. Oh, I've got one of those here. It's crazy. Okay. This is a black pine. And what they often did with them was, because the roots are these long tap roots, is they developed the roots as an exposed root style. So I wouldn't want the big fibrous roots to do this. I want those long, crazy ones. And that's why you see a lot of exposed root pines, because that was a good thing to do with that kind of a root system. So they do it crazy. Now this looks all funny because this just had its needles plucked, which is something you have to get into for it. So this looks all weird because I went through and did their first plucking, and pretty soon now I got to go and do a second plucking, which means I'll take everything but 6 or 8 needles around each cluster off of it. And that's how you eventually get a look like that.
Conifer needle maintenance is the most perplexing thing to me.
The whole idea is that you are controlling energy flow. The whole thing with pines, well, for almost all of them, is controlling energy flow. So by me going through and eliminating a lot of the needles that were on here, do I have one I didn't do? Yes. The other, give me back the pine, the exposure one. Yeah, that one. This one has not been done. It's kind of obvious it hasn't been done. Okay, because all I've been doing is growing this as stock to sell. So I'm not doing any work on it. So you got big, long, heavy, healthy needles like crazy, but none of this plucking has been done, so we're not working on any of that. I don't know, whoever buys this, I don't know what style they're going to do with it. I don't know anything, so I'm just keeping it healthy for them. But once you start working on a tree like this, then you have to do basically the following. In early winter, December-ish or whatnot, you go through and you pluck. You take a pair of tweezers and you pluck out the needles in each group and reduce it down to like 10 to 15 needles around each cluster. Then later in the season, which would be about now, you go through and reduce that down to 6 to 8 needles. You don't do it all at once because you want the plant to have the energy. It has to maintain energy for the winter. Remember, a conifer can create energy from photosynthesis the entire year. Deciduous tree can't. So a conifer is actually going to store a lot of its energy in its needles and its bark, and not as much in its roots, whereas a deciduous tree is going to store it in its roots. That makes a big difference in the way a plant grows. So I don't want to rob it too early in the season. So now I get it down to take some more of these needles out and make it really sparse. Now let me show you what I
When
got.
you say leave 6 to 8, do you mean 6 to 8 needles or 6 to 8 clusters of 2 needles?
6 to 8 clusters of 2 needles. So, like this one here, because I was going to do them yesterday, I didn't get any further. This one is done the proper way. You can see there's not much on there. Now, why is that important? Because those needles are going to be the ones that feed the new buds. The less food to the new buds, the shorter the needles will be. Okay? That's the secret of it.
Say it again? Can you say it again?
The less food I provide to those buds, because these are the needles that are going to provide for this bud. Not down here. These needles are going to provide it. Those needles are feeding that bud. The more needles I have here, the bigger the next round will be. And you can see, this is what they look like without me fooling around with them all. Plenty of food creates big needles. Less food, now this one was done last year, so the needles are shorter, and then even shorter for another year. The next step would be buds are going to be forming on these, and the next step, which is described in your little things here. Oh, go all from the beginning. Forget that. You're going to get a set of buds. You'll get a main bud in the center and a ring of buds around. Because remember, these grow like wagon wheels. If it was a tree outside, more than likely they'll have 5 in the center one. Usually, ones in a pot will have 2 or 3 in the center one. You're going to take and remove the center one and leave only 2 of the other ones. One will become the stem going out. One will become the side stem. That's what's going to do the thing. Oh, good. Sorry. Stop. The first thing you're going to do is remove the bud. I forgot. I skipped a step on you. The first set of buds that come out, you remove. You don't want them. The second set of buds that come off, you pare it down to 2.
Are you talking about the candle? What do you do with the
The candle, yeah.
Okay.
Because if you let that first bud grow, you're going to have long internodal spaces. By getting rid of that bud, it's all described on the sheets that I'm running out for you. You get rid of that, those early buds, you'll get short internodal spaces because it doesn't have enough energy to make a long one.
So the first set of buds you take off completely?
Yeah. We call it decandling.
And that would be happening about,
It depends on. It depends on the growing season. So, let me get these punch cards.
and when would you start that whole exercise on something as small? I mean, how long?
Oh, you're not going to do any of this until you have a developed tree.
Okay.
So this is ready to have that done. Okay. Your little trees, no, because that's going that would be kind of fatal.
And how long does it take to reach
That point
that point?
depends on what kind of a tree you want to develop out of it. In the case of these little black pines, the best thing that you could do is eliminate the strongest little bud in the center so that you'll get side branching when it's little, but don't do any of the needle pulling. Once you've got a reasonable trunk, I got a punch right here. You have to do them by packets. Sorry about that. I meant to do that this morning. I completely forgot. When you're trying to develop a pine, you are often going to let the branches grow longer than you want and then work to bring them back because you need to feed that center and get a trunk. You know what I'm saying? If you don't feed that center, you're not going to have any kind of trunk. Now, on these guys, I wanted thin, elegant trunks, so I didn't have to wait a long time to do it. But if I want to make a cool, little, chunky black pine, then I'm going to have to feed it and bring the branches back in and improve
Thank you.
your pines. Two-needle pines are easy to bring back in because if I keep taking out that end bud, it'll keep breaking back and breaking back and breaking back. So some of you are familiar with the Mugo pine I have always at the bottom of the steps here outside, the Naka pine. When I inherited it, it was like this. And I brought it into this. It was just all out there like this, they're easy to bring back in. It just takes time. You just keep cutting them back and cutting them back and cutting them back. The other thing you can do with these little ones that we've got from Mark is you can do this kind of a thing with them too. You can let them grow out, wire them like crazy, and you can make crazy little things like this. Okay, so how are we going to start this? Well, we know what we're going to do with the ficus, but what about these little black pines? Well, you're going to lift one up. We don't pull. Why don't we pull it out of the pot?
I want to share the roots.
We don't want to tear the roots. That's right. So we're going to lift it up out of the pot, and you're going to see you're going to have that spread, that spread we're talking about. You're going to have that spread, and you're going to put it in a container. Depending on what you think you want to do with it, I'll give you a couple of different types of containers that you can use. You can use just a plain container like this. Okay, these are all pre-prepped for you. You can put a layer of the Accio in here. Spread out your roots. Carefully, 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 because that's going to be the way they are forever. All right? Spread out your roots. Use your chopstick. Put them out nice and neat. Put another layer of Akadama on it. Oh, I did have them do that, didn't I? You don't need the wire for this. All right. Nice layer, and then you're going to grow it. Okay? Prep it like you would normally. In other words, put a little bit of fertilizer in the bottom of this. Put the micronutrients in. Put the mycorrhiza in. And put your other layer on and let this grow. You're just going to grow. You don't know what you're going to do with it, right? You're going to grow it in this type of a container. If you think you want to grow just a tiny, 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 tiny thing, then you're going to take a smaller pot and grow. This will give you a medium size or larger. If you want to keep it really tiny, use a smaller pot, and you're going to have to actually trim your roots before you put them in. And you're going to restrict it with a smaller pot. These you're going to need to put the netting in the bottom of it. So that's what you're going to do with your pines. They're going to grow this season pretty well. These have what he calls his winter color on them. I've had it in my greenhouse. They haven't darkened up yet. Ooh, these are nice and healthy. Nice buds on it. But a number of them, if you look, have side branches already starting to develop on them. If you are going to make a little, well watered, if you are going to make a little mame or whatever, leave those side branches on. If you wanted to go a medium height one, and the side branches are at the bottom, like on this one, keep the side branches on because they'll thicken the trunk. If you decide, I want to try one of those literati things, then don't let those little side branches develop. Get rid of them. Okay? You understand? Question?
Question about the mame. So I'm also growing like a little sequoia in about the same, it's like even smaller pot than that, but like if you kept something like this in a pot like that, it's going to, you're going to have to keep cutting it back to keep it that size, or unless you're going to have to up pot it.
Okay. For the pine itself, if I was going to be keeping it small, I might actually let a side branch really grow big as a sacrifice branch I'm going to cut off later. Sequoias, to tell you the truth, you'd have to write Bob Simmons.
Okay.
And he'll tell you how to do it, because I don't grow them.
Yeah.
He's the one to check with. And I know from personally, he's got ones from this big to this big in his collection.
Yeah.
But check with him, and he's good about answering.
But to keep this mame you would just let it grow and then keep cutting it back like that. If you like, how big could you get like a little, not a little sumo black pine, but how?
Yeah, you can get a sumo black pine.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you want the sacrifice branches, in the case of a sumo thing, you want to use those really low ones. And you're gonna have to style it so those end up coming off the back of your tree. Or you're gonna have a problem, because they're not gonna heal well, I know they don't. So, unless you want your little elf hole in there or something later on,
Yeah.
you gotta watch where that is. But the more you can feed at that bottom, the faster you'll get the sumo. To do the little sumo black pines, you have to let that grow, and then you let this thing grow a bit, and then you cut this back and let it grow and cut it back. So that all of those things are being allowed to grow out and cut back and grow out and cut back. It takes a while to get that heavy duty little sumo thing at the bottom.
Yeah. For sure. Okay.
The best way to get those is actually putting it in the ground. If you don't put it in the ground, it's gonna take way, way too long. Hence you see them doing more, making the squiggles. Why did it want to put paper in? I've got a pile of paper in here. So what we're gonna have you do is set up a workstation at your table. Normally we would gather all around, but we can't do that anymore. Which means you're gonna need a green tray. I don't know if everybody knows where the green trays are. Those who know where they are can show others. Okay, I guess he dated it. How many more copies do you need? Who didn't get a copy of the pine thing?
Everybody got it.
Oh, everybody got it? Oh, then it was done. Why is it telling me it needs more? I have no idea. All right, we're gonna get green trays out. You might wanna put your notebooks where they won't get harmed.
There's 6 here.
Get your tools out. Yeah, you're getting a newspaper.
You need one more?
You guys can do the right file, yeah.
Sure.
Yep, we got it.
Yeah.
I didn't even have to say so.
Can you
I'm
drop
impressed.
that on Brandon's?
Okay, the only, we'll do ficuses first, but the only fair way to do this is me to just randomly distribute, because otherwise I don't want fights.
Oh,
I could put numbers and we
I'm
could
not
do
gonna
drawings.
fight about my ficus, that's
You're
okay.
not gonna fight.
You can give me the worst one, that's okay.
No, I'm just gonna randomly distribute. So you're gonna get whatever one I hand. I am not going to,